Benvenuti gentili telespettatori in questo nuovo appuntamento del 724 Europa. Come sapete è molto caldo in tutti i sensi il tema dei cambiamenti climatici, il climate change, dell'ambiente, di quello che l'Europa vuole preparare con un piano ambizioso del Green New Deal voluto dal Presidente della Commissione Europea Ursula von der Leyen. E per questo abbiamo Trio Wendel che con noi, I switch in English, lo dico ai nostri telespettatori perché evidentemente il nostro ospite non parla italiano e quindi dobbiamo parlare in inglese, ma che è una lingua insomma universale, quindi non abbiamo problemi. Welcome Trio. Thank you to join us. Today you are the Director of Climate Action Network Europe. And since 2011, I guess.
Yes, correct.
And the climate change is a very hot topic in this moment. Are you happy for the von der Leyen policy with the European Commission?
Well, it's definitely clear that we have seen
we have a problem. Houston,
we have a problem, definitely, yeah. Yes. When we say it's a hot issue, I would say that in Australia you can take that very literally, but we are happy that the new Commission has put climate change much higher on the agenda of the new Commission. But of course, at the moment, it is just an announcement of different pieces of that package, which we will have to see how strong the proposals will be that will be coming in different times of this year and next year.
Are you confident that the European Commission will achieve this kind of goals? Because it's really ambitious. It's not easy.
Well, we are positive, but also a little bit skeptical. I think, yes, the Commission needs to do many things, but of course they can only make the proposals, and we will push the Commission to ensure the proposals are as strong and as adequate as needed. But of course then is also the whole process of
It's a lot of money investment. It's 1,000 billion euros. So
yes.
It's too much.
There is of course a huge investment.
It is not enough, I guess.
Well, you know that almost 5 years ago, countries had this big meeting in Paris, where the world agreed that we would at least make an effort to limit temperature rise to 1.5 degrees. We're currently at around 1. That is really needed if we want to avoid the most dangerous impacts. And in order to achieve that 1.5, yes, investments will be needed, but it's not only costs, because they will also bring benefits. I mean, there's certain industrial sectors that will definitely benefit. It will create lots of co-benefits in terms of employment and healthcare and so on. But also the costs of not doing anything are even much higher.
Yeah,
and that's the challenge that we're facing. We need to make investments now for returns that may come much later.
The effects of that kind of negligency in some way, it could be worse than in the past.
Yes.
For sure. In Australia, the wildfires killed more than 1 billion of animals.
Yes.
1 billion.
Yes, and unfortunately the difference between 1 degree and 1.5 degree is not just 50% more impact, it's exponential. It goes doubling, tripling, quadrupling in terms of the impacts that we will see. And we're now speaking about the wildfires in Australia, but remember the droughts we saw in the summer in Europe. And
yes.
And
1,400 species disappeared due to the firestorm in Australia. It's a very great damage there.
Yes, and this is the damage on nature, but of course there's also damage on humans.
This is Australia, because the floods in Africa, for example, in Sudan, more than 500,000 people with the floods, and Ethiopia is much more. South Sudan and Djibouti, for example, suffering a lot. And for example, the media don't make any kind of approach regarding this topic.
I mean, it's clear, but I don't want to criticize the media, but certain countries...
But it seems that this kind of suffering don't exist.
Yes, I mean,
the point.
Certain countries get more media attention if there's something happening in the US or Australia.
The bad attitude to consider Africa something that is not part of our life.
And I mean, it is very clear that the human suffering of climate change is frightening. And it is frightening to see what's happening now, but also to hear what might be happening in the future, and then to compare that to the little progress that we have made over the last years in terms of climate action worldwide, but also in the EU. I mean, also in the EU, the last 5 years, we've seen very little real emission reductions.
Yes, may I ask you a comment about the position of the United Nations about refugees? Because if they suffering by the climate change, they maintain a status, a privileged status about their future, because obviously they suffering a lot about that. May I have your comment?
Yes, so it's very clear that again here climate change exacerbates the migration streams that are already happening, and people are saying that even the war in Syria is strongly influenced by the droughts that happened 6-7 years ago, and that led from people who were living on the countryside to go to the cities, which then created an explosive situation. So clearly there's a link. The question is, of course, whether you can kind of apply to an official refugee status as a climate refugee. That I would assume that many countries here in Europe would not like to hear.
Your organization, it could be they represent more than 160 countries?
Yes. So
it's a very great, huge front about this discussion of climate change.
Yes. So I am representing the European chapter, but we have chapters in all continents that work together under the big umbrella. And we, of course, for us, the situation in developing countries is really a core part of our work.
And take note that the hottest decade record everywhere, not only in Europe, everywhere, in Africa, in Australia, US, it could be that only the 15% of global emission are able to do a change about the climate change, and only 2 countries decide to have a plan. Is very small decision in this way. Why so poor results finally?
Well, the problem being that if we really want to tackle emissions, we need to do something with our economy, and we need to find a different way to produce electricity, to produce goods, etc. There's a level of competitiveness coming into that debate, and we see that a lot of the industrial sectors are very reluctant to do something in one country if nothing is happening in the other country. And that's where we need this international agreement so that all countries move forward, because otherwise it will not happen.
Trio, carbon market will be disappear finally, or maintains a certain role?
I mean, I think there's a certain role for carbon markets, but that role would be rather within specific constituencies like the European Union. A global carbon market, I think, will be very, very hard, because the differences between countries are not so easy. And this is one of the issues where at the last climate summit in Madrid in December of last year, there was no agreement among countries.
What kind of a consideration emerging from this summit in Madrid?
Well, I think at least we saw at the end that countries were aware that they need to do more. They agreed in Paris some collective commitments, but their individual commitments are falling short. And so now they reiterated their commitment that towards the next summit, which will be in Glasgow in November of this year, that all countries should bring additional action that they are prepared to do in the short term.
It's funny that you realize a summit in Scotland, you know, after the Brexit.
I know.
And when Scotland decide to move forward in a new referendum, it could be very interesting even to understand exactly the mood that coming from Scotland in that period, I guess. And the position of Greta Thunberg and your position cross, or is different because your approach is different?
I mean, definitely our approach is different. We, of course, share the same objectives. I would say that she probably in her public communications is saying things a bit more strongly than we would do, but of course we share the same desire for this problem to be tackled.
Trio, thank you so much to be here to talking about a very important, amazing topic to explain to our audience about the climate change. I wish you all the best and great results for the future, even for the countries that be part of the Climate Action Network Europe that you are director. Thank you so much again.
Thank you very much.
Have a great day.
Okay.
E grazie ai nostri telespettatori che ci hanno seguito. Ambiente molto importante come tema, sicuramente ci torneremo anche con i membri del Parlamento europeo. Arrivederci.